and come out stronger together. Am Yisrael Chai. That's how we persevere and come out and survive. I'd like to call up Rabbi Yochanan Friedman, the director of Chabad by the Sea and Chabad in Santa Cruz, for some words of inspiration.
I don't know that I can necessarily inspire anybody after that and before Mr. Alexander. Instead, I just want to say that my feeling was that this is no time for Jews to be alone. A Jew shouldn't be home alone at a time like this. And thank God, we're not alone. Look at this. Baruch Hashem. We have a room full of friends, a room full of people who are inspired by goodness and moved to make the world a better place. So we're in good company. So first of all, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for being part of this, for being part of rising above negativity. As we'll find out soon, not only rising above it, but growing from it, turning the negative into positive. As some of you know, part of what I do is a chaplaincy in the state prison system. And just this week we had a graduation ceremony for, how close are you supposed to be to this thing? How does this thing work? We had a graduation ceremony for these men who take a self-help course based on Torah, based on Jewish wisdom. And one particular individual gets up wearing the Muslim kufi hat, and he says, I took the course and I grew so much from it, and this is how I benefited from it, and it taught me not to think only about myself, which is what the course is all about. And he says, just the other day I was at a service and they asked me to speak, and I started to speak about what I normally speak about, and then I stopped and I thought to myself, why am I talking about me? I just learned that it's not about me. I'm supposed to be talking about, and he says, I changed what I was going to say, and I talked about, and it was all because of this course that he took. So before he sat down after his talk, I ran up to the podium and I stood there with him and I said, so let's get this straight. Are you saying that the rabbi improved the Muslim service? And he said, yes, so I said to this room full of 70 or 80 inmates, I said, so now you know firsthand that all that stuff you're seeing on the news about how Jews and Muslims can't get along, it's just not true. So don't believe anything you're seeing on the news, because chances are it isn't true. There are good people everywhere, and if you can teach them a little bit of Torah, a little bit of godly wisdom, even people who are life without parole for multiple murders or whatever, God forbid, they can be good people. If we believe in the goodness of people, the world is already a better place. What's exciting to me about tonight's speaker is his infectious positivity. If you walk out of here feeling anything but positive, then you probably fell asleep in the middle of the talk or something, because that's not a possibility. This is going to be truly an honor and a privilege to hear, like my son-in-law said, a living angel speak to us. So Baruch Hashem, this is very exciting. Before we do, part of the program was to have a little moment of prayer. So a little slight modification to the program, because we want to keep it positive and keep it purposeful. But we're also told by the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Rebbe Menachem Mendel Schneerson of blessed memory, that every gathering like this should always involve Torah study, prayer, and charity. As we know from the Mishnah, that those are the three pillars on which the world stands, and that's what we do when we need to strengthen the goodness in the world. And so, the Torah study, the lessons that we'll learn, no doubt will serve that purpose. And for prayer, I'm going to ask Rabbi Shlomi Chain, who is the director of the Chabad Student Center, to come up and lead us in a brief prayer, and then we'll hear from the man of the hour.
What better words of prayer than the prayers of King David, the builder of Israel, the uniter of the Jewish people, who set Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the Jewish people, and also wrote a beautiful book of prayer that we continue to say. So I'll recite, sorry we don't have translations, a handout, but I'll recite it in Hebrew and then in English, and then we'll all say Amen. Psalm 21, I lift up my eyes to heaven. Shir lamailot, esa einai el harim, me'ayin yavo ezri. Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shemayim va'aretz, al yitein lamot raglecha, al yanum shomrecha. Hine lo yanum velo yishan shomer Yisrael, Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha, al yad yeminecha. Yomam hashemesh lo yakecha, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitcha uveyacha me'ata v'ad olam. A song of ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord, maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumber nor sleeps. The Lord is your guardian. The Lord is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon at night. The Lord will guard you from all harm. He will guard your life. The Lord will guard your going and coming now and forever. May God guard all of those who need to come, all the hostages who need to come home safely, and all of those who are going to freedom and to protect the Jewish people. May they go and come back safely with the Lord's blessing. And let us all say Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so we were supposed to have, we were honored that the mayor of Santa Cruz, Mr. Keeley, actually agreed to offer to be here tonight, and I don't think he's here, unless he's hiding somewhere in the crowd and I didn't see him. But apparently he didn't make it tonight, which is a shame. We really, truly appreciate his offer, his kindness to be here, and want to mention that and recognize his kindness and express our gratitude to him for that, although he couldn't make it for whatever reason. So, therefore, I get to steal the honor, and it really is a tremendous honor for me to introduce us all tonight to Mr. Joseph Alexander. Reb Yosef, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Ram. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay.
Just a reminder, it's on the booklet, but following Joe's talk, there will be a Q&A session, and on the booklet it says the number that you can text any questions you'd like to ask, and we'll have a good half-hour session of questions from the crowd. So if you have any questions while he's talking, feel free to start sending the text, and we'll go with him afterwards.
Okay. My name is Joe Alexander. I'm a Holocaust survivor from Poland, and I survived 12 camps. I come from a small town in Poland. My father was in business, and we had a very good life until 1939, until the Germans came into Poland. They divided Poland in two halves. One half was annexed to the Third Reich, to Germany. The second half was Poland under German occupation. We lived on the part where it was annexed to the Third Reich. After a few weeks, they came to town and went around. We lived in the second house in one corner of the square. Europe, every town has a square. And the second house was an uncle of mine. They came and went after, past my uncle, around the square and told the people they have 10 minutes to get their possessions and get out in the middle of the square, and they took them away. For some reason, I'll never know why, they left the 3 houses where we were the second house. Then the rumor started that they only come back 3 days later and take the rest of us. So my father had 3 sisters living about 25 kilometers before Warsaw, which was the second part of Poland. So Dad said, we're not going to wait for them to come and give us 10 minutes. So he got out and got rented. We had deep horse-drawn wagons, about 6-8 feet deep. And packed up most of the stuff from the store and put a few pieces of bedding on top and a couple pieces of furniture, because from our part to the other part they had to go through a border, so that we were moving. So my parents and one brother and one sister, they left. I remained with 2 older sisters, and we were loading up a second wagon. In the meantime, the Polish people around town were coming to town to buy anything they can get. I sold a man a bicycle and a boat of shirt material. On the way home, he had to pass the police station, so he got stopped, and they wanted to know where did he get that material. They thought maybe they took the business people out, maybe people are looting already. He said, I bought it, then show me a receipt. He said, I don't have a receipt. Then go bring the person who sold it to you. So he came back to me, and he said, you have to come with me, if not, they're going to come here. So I went with him, and he asked me, did you sell him that? I said, yes. Why didn't you give him a receipt? I said, we in Poland, we didn't give receipts. So I took the boat material, smacked the guy, and let him go, and let me go. And I went back, my sisters waited for me, and we took off. And we came to a little town named Blonia, about 25 kilometers before Warsaw. And their life was going on almost normal still. People were still in business, but everybody has to go to work. Being there for about a couple of weeks, I went to my first camp. It was in 1939. I went to a camp where you work during the week. On the weekend, you can go home. But the work we were doing, we were building a canal. You stayed in the boots, in the water, without boots, up to the knee. And the time it was October, November, Europe, that's already winter time. So I worked there for about 6 weeks, and I got blood poisoning. I got sores on my arms, on my legs. So I went home one weekend, I said, I'm not going back. So Monday morning, the police came to look for me. So my dad said, he's not here, he's supposed to be in the camp. So I stayed away from home for a while. I lived with my friends and cousins. And that was the time where they were starting to build a wall in Warsaw, where the Warsaw Ghetto was going to be. So after they were finishing building the wall, they came out with an order, all the Jews who live within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Warsaw had to move into the Warsaw Ghetto. So we moved into the ghetto. You can't imagine how terrible, how bad it was, because the area they picked out for the ghetto was a small area, and they put in over 400,000 people. People who walked out on the streets were dead people everywhere, on the streets, on the sidewalks, everywhere. I lived in the ghetto for 5 months, and we found out what back home, since we left, nothing had changed. So my parents decided for an older sister, a younger brother, and I, we should go back home. So back home you have to get out of the ghetto, so we paid off the guard at the gate to get out. And we said the sister and brother would take one street, and I'll take another street, and we walk through town, we meet on the outskirts of town. I walked about 3 blocks, and I had a Polish teenager comes over and said, give me some money or I'm gonna report you. So I figured I gave him some money, I'll get rid of him. And I kept walking. But he got on a streetcar, rode the streetcar for a few blocks, and he comes over and give me some more money. So this time I gave him some more money, but I changed the street, and I lost him. I walked to the outskirts of town and met my sister and brother, and we went home. So we came back, like I said, nothing has changed since we left. But I was there for 3 days. They came out, all the Jewish men from 16 to 60 reported the schoolhouse. So I reported the schoolhouse, and off I went to the camps. So the first camp I went to, we were building a dam. We were cutting down hills, and I had little electric cars. You fill them up, and they take them a different place, and they dump it. The work was very hard work. You had to use picks to loosen up the ground so you can fill up those cars. And the food you were getting was a piece of bread like this in the morning, and a cup of coffee, and you went to work. You came back from work, you got a soup. Most of the time were from the peels of potatoes or spinach. Doing that kind of work, you couldn't survive. And I was in a camp in a city named Poznan, and there were camps in the city and around the city. So every morning there was taking out dead people in my camp. So the camp was getting very small. And so I got moved to another camp. Moved to another camp, then I was laying cobblestones lay in the streets. And that waited a few weeks. Then I moved to another camp where we were building sewers, putting in cement pipes underground. Oh, this camp didn't last too long. Then I moved to a camp where I was a roofer, doing roofs. After that, I went to another camp. We're building an airport. I was near railroad tracks. After being in 7 camps, a train arrived, and it wasn't a passenger train, you know, the cattle car train, where they put 30, 40 people into one boxcar. And the destination we were going, it takes about 5 or 6 hours at the most. But we were riding around for 3 days with no food, no water, no facilities. Finally, we arrived in Auschwitz. Came to Auschwitz, there's a little town named Oswiecim. So the train stopped downtown in Oswiecim, and they opened the doors. 30–40% of the people were dead on the train already. And whoever could walk, you walked out, lined up in rows of 5, and I met Dr. Joseph Mengele. Dr. Mengele was called the Doctor of Death. He selected people for human experiments or for the gas chamber. So he said he's going to select people to go to the left. The people on the left are going to be taken on trucks. So he went through and he picked out sick people, old people, young kids. So I was a little guy, picked me out too. And I come to the left, if I would come from home, I wouldn't know the difference. But I was already in 7 camps when I came there. In every camp I had to go to work. I tried to get in with the biggest, strongest man. And here I look around, I see sick people, old people. That's not the kind of people I like to be with. My luck was, it was after midnight. Would have been daytime, I don't think I could have done it. When Dr. Mengele moved further down, I ran back to the other side. If I didn't run back to the other side, I wouldn't be here talking to you tonight. Because the people on the left were taking on trucks, went straight to the gas chamber. So I went back to the other side, and we walked to the camp. Walked to the camp, I got a shower, and came out of the shower, and I got a tattoo. You can see here a number, 142584. From that moment on, that was your name. You had no name anymore. So I got a tattoo, and there's Auschwitz II called Birkenau. They're about 3 kilometers apart. So I walked over to Birkenau. I was in Birkenau for 6 weeks. And I saw Dr. Mengele 2 more times in Birkenau, but it was daytime and he was far away from where I was. So I got through. And that was a time in the Birkenau when people gave up already. I saw people running to the electric fence to get electrocuted. I saw people being beaten to death because they gave up. So I was in Birkenau for about 5 weeks. And that was a time where the Warsaw Ghetto uprising was. It was a big uprising in the Warsaw Ghetto. So they say they need a big transport, but they didn't want to take any people from Poland, only from Greece, Hungary, Italy. But on the end they were short about 300 people. So they said, now we'll take some people from Poland. So I report, and I was going back to the Warsaw Ghetto for the 2nd time. Came back to the Warsaw Ghetto, there wasn't one house left. All the buildings were burned out, and it was just the remaining, excuse me, just the remaining walls. And our job was to take down those walls brick by brick and clean them up and put them up in stacks of 8 to 10 feet high. So we were doing this, and then, in the meantime, the typhus broke out. Because when we came back, just to taking down those bricks, there was no camp. They gave us some prefab. We had to put together our own camp. By the time we put the barracks together, the typhus broke out. Anybody reported the hospital, I never knew anybody who came out. Typhus is when you get high fever, high temperature. I got it, but I didn't report to the hospital. I had, we called a couple, like a foreman. He was a middle-aged German man, but he was also a prisoner. So he didn't care if we worked or it didn't work. So when I got it, I was sitting behind those stacks of bricks like this for about 3 days until I got over it and went back to work. After a few weeks, the Polish underground attacked our camp one night, trying to free us, but they were unsuccessful. So the next morning, they closed the camp, they took us out, and to get out of the city, we had to jog. They said they're afraid that the underground may attack us in the city. So we jogged to get out, so they put us up on a big field where the farmers graze their cows, and the ground is very moist. So when we got on the field, whatever means you have, a knife, a spoon, anything, you could dig up some mud, and you took the bottom of the shirt and you squeezed the mud to get a little water. So we got a little water, stayed overnight, and the next morning we're on the march. Come to a city, there was a river. So they let us go to the river to get some water. Two of our people went a little further into the river. They thought maybe they won't escape. They got killed, they got shot right in the river. So we had some water and we were walking and come to the next town. There was the same river. They said this time only 100 people at a time can go to the river to get some water. So I went, we got some water, and we were walking, and that day was a very heavy rain coming down. You were walking, you couldn't even walk, you were soaking wet. You could hardly walk. Until we arrived at the railroad station and stayed overnight, and the same train arrived, and we got on the train. You were on the train for 3.5 days at that time. We were going to Germany, to a camp named Dachau. Dachau was the first camp Hitler built in 1933 for political prisoners. Then he turned it into a concentration camp with the gas chambers. Came to Dachau for about 2 weeks. I didn't do anything because they were establishing 12 camps by numbers, from 1 to 12, within 50, 60 kilometers in the surrounding area of Dachau. So then I was sent to a camp number 1, and I was working for a farmer digging potatoes. That lasted about 3 weeks. Then I was sent 50 kilometers from Dachau to a city of Landsberg am Lech, and that was camp number 7. Camp number 7 was a small camp with only about 250 people, and that was the only camp I was where women was in the same camp, but they were blocked off by one corner of the camp by a wire fence. But we went to work together. So when came to camp number 7, we were a small group that we were in the camps already over 4 years. So we had the privilege of getting the better jobs. So friends of mine got the jobs working in the kitchen. 3 of my friends, they were police in the camp, and a couple of one was a carpenter and a metalsmith. And I got a group of 10 people. We were 5 boys and 5 girls, working for a German kitchen for the German guards outside the camp. So in the kitchen I was working there were 2 men in charge in the kitchen, 2 German men. They were very good to me. Every day I was going back to the camp. I took some food back from my friends, and we always had soup left over. So we had some big milk cans. I put one in a milk can, the soup, and the next morning people were going to work. They had to pass by our kitchen, so I stopped and gave them some food. A couple of times the officer in charge of the guard complained that I'm holding up the people going to work. But my people said, don't worry about it, let them talk, do what you're doing. And that lasted about 6 weeks, and it was till April 28, 1945, all the 12 camps had to go back to Dachau. So I came back to Dachau, stayed on a big field overnight, and the next morning we were going what they called on a death march. They're supposed to take us in. There's a ski resort in Germany named Garmisch-Partenkirchen, and they're supposed to kill us in the mountain there. But we walked about 2 days, and we knew we were not going to be walking too far, because we could hear the fighting going on, the planes coming over, bombing the city. So we knew that the American troops are not far behind us. So I walked over 2 days, and we crossed a little bridge, and the bridge was blowing up. So our group was divided in 2 halves. One half, I was on the halfway, was in a village named Königsdorf, and there was a little forest in the village. So they took us into the forest and asked for volunteers to take the sick people into the farmers in the village and put them in the barn and told the volunteers to come back. One of the volunteers was a friend of mine. So on the way back, they found a dead horse in the snow. So they cut up some pieces from the horse, and my friend comes back with a piece of meat, horse meat. That's him. His name was Joe Buddha. So he came back with a piece of horse meat, and he said, do something. So I made a fire, and I was barbecuing, and that was the best meal we had in a long time. During the night, the guards disappeared. We didn't know until next morning. The German police came, and they took us into that village, and they disappeared. That was in the morning, about between 8, 9 o'clock. So we just walked around the village to see what's going to happen next. So we walked around till about between 12 and 1 o'clock. American tank moved in, and we were liberated. And behind the tank were the American troops. So the American troops came into the village. They're trying to block off the village, not to let anybody out. But we were a good 9 of us. We were in the camps over 5 years. So we didn't want to get blocked in. We broke through and started to walk to see where the next town is. So we walked for about 1 or 2 kilometers, and there was a bakery. So we got into the bakery, and everybody got a bread. You had a bread, you were okay. And we kept walking and come to a town named Bartels, and you see 3 American soldiers walking. They were Czechoslovakian descent. They were walking, they were trying to walk. They couldn't walk, they were holding on to each other. So we were so drunk. So the clothes we were wearing, they said, well, ask you, are you Polish? He told me yes. So they said, come on. And they took us in to an underground bunker. You couldn't see the end of it. So first thing, we changed clothes, and everybody got a backpack, put some food in, and there was a big row of bicycles chained up. So they broke the chain, and everybody got a bicycle. But then when the American troops came in behind our tank, they brought all the people to that city. It used to be a German Air Force base, and they made a DP camp, a displaced person camp. But we didn't want to go to the camp. So we tried to get out to find a place to stay. You couldn't get out because it was after 6 o'clock, and 6 o'clock was curfew. So we hopped over about 3 or 4 fences, and we came to a German inn, but it was taken over by the American troops. And in back of the inn was an empty house, so we took over the house. So I stayed in the house about 10 days. Then they came out and ordered anybody who lives outside the camp has to move in to the camp. So we moved into the camp, and we were taken to another DP camp in Munich. Munich is the capital of Bavaria. To Munich to a DP camp, but you are free. You want it, you can live at the camp, or you can go any place you want. I lived in the camp about 3 days, and then I decided, and my couple of friends of mine, we decided to go back to the city of Landsberg, where camp number 7 was. And in Landsberg, there was, not just Landsberg, in Germany, there were a lot of DP camps at the time. Landsberg was one of the largest. So I went to Landsberg, went to the camp, registered, and they gave me a room. I stayed overnight, and the next morning, I moved out about 7 kilometers from town to a farm, and I lived in a farmhouse. The reason we went to all the camps to register, in case any of your family survived. So we went to look through the list. because when I got out of the Warsaw Ghetto, I left in the Warsaw Ghetto my parents, 2 sisters and 1 brother. I left the Warsaw Ghetto, still to today, I still don't know what happened to them. So that's why I went to the camps to register. So I lived in a farmhouse for about 6 weeks, and I decided to go back to Poland to see if any of my family survived, anybody came back. So I went to my house, so survivors living on the 2nd floor, and the 1st floor were Polish people living, but I said, none of my immediate family survived, came back. The only one who survived was a cousin of mine. He was 2 years younger than I, and we were separated when Dr. Mengele told me, when I came to Auschwitz to go to the left, he was with his 2 uncles, 2 his father's brothers. So, but he is the only one who survived, but he was in a different town. In that time, the Polish people lived in my house on the 1st floor, asked me if I'm going to stay. They're going to move out. I said, don't bother, because it was very bad for survivors who came back. They killed a lot of survivors in Poland, because when they took the Jews out of the homes, they moved into the homes. Now survivors are coming back. They didn't want to give up the homes, so they killed a lot of survivors. In one town named Kielce, they killed 42 survivors in one town. So now I told them, no, I'm not going to stay, so I went and I picked up my cousin and we went back to Germany. So I went back to Germany and I lived in Germany for 4 more years after I was liberated, because I couldn't go any place, I didn't have a passport, and I had to wait till some country opens up. So after 4 years, Canada said, they're going to accept some people. So I went and I registered, and then you have to wait until they call you. It took a long time, didn't hear from them, didn't come. So in the meantime, a friend of mine lived in the next village. He said, you can go to Munich, and they registered to go to America. So I went to Munich, and I registered, and it took only about 2 weeks. And I had a note to go get checked out by the American doctor, and then the FBI to check you out. And I got a short notice to go to Bremenhaven. There's a port in Germany where the boat was, to get the boat to come to America. So I went, I got on a boat, and I arrived in America on April 30th, on May 30th, 1949. Came to New York, everybody had to have a sponsor. Either have some relatives here or an organization. I didn't have any relatives. I was sponsored by a Jewish organization named Joint. And my contract was Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So I went to Harrisburg. I got a job as a tailor, and I worked for a man who has a cleaning store and tuxedo rental. That man, a father, couldn't be better than he was to me. So I was there for about six months, because then I came in May, and the cousin of mine who survived had an uncle here in Santa Monica, and he was a sponsor. So he came to Santa Monica, and he told the uncle that I'm in Pennsylvania, and we were the only 2 survivors from our family. So the uncle called me a few times, I should come here to Santa Monica, because we were the only 2 survivors from our families, both families. So I came to Santa Monica, and then, so I lived in actually in Los Angeles, and for a while, and that was the time the Korean War started. It was 1950. in Victorville. If you know where Victorville is, there used to be a big American Air Force base. In 1946, they closed the base. So in 1950, the Korean War started, so they reopened the base. So I got a contract at the base as a tailor. I opened a tailor shop. There with my cousin, we opened there. And I lived in Victorville about 7 years. Then I went to Los Angeles. I said, I'm going to open a store in Los Angeles. And I opened a store in Los Angeles selling military uniforms. It's called the Los Angeles Uniform Exchange. If you're familiar with Los Angeles, on the Melrose, right next block where Paramount Studio is. So we were there for 37 years, and most of the movies, military movies, or TV show, because the uniforms came from us. So we were there for 37 years, and I said, now it's time to retire. So we sold the store, and I retired. In '94, I retired. And so now I've been talking since 1997. I'm talking to general public, high schools, middle schools, all over California, all over the world actually, because I've been back in 2015. I went back to Germany. I was invited by the German government to come back to celebrate 70 years the liberation of Dachau. I went back and I even actually met time. It was the, here, Chancellor of Germany, Angela Merkel. I talked to her in Dachau. And then we went there. I went to Italy. So I went to Italy. I spoke in a high school, a school in Italy, to a high school. And then I went to Florence, and I spoke in Florence in Italy. And now I've been speaking all over. I went back in Germany. We went back again now in April of this year. I was invited to come back to celebrate 78 years the liberation of Dachau. So I went back over there, and I was speaking there to thousands, about over 2,000 people, general public, and a lot of, they brought in high school students. I was talking to a lot of high school students in Dachau now in May. So, and a few months ago, I was talking to a group in Scotland. And I spoke to her, and then I had a call from a lady in Ireland. She has a TV show in Ireland. So I got an interview from her, and she was putting it on the TV in Ireland. So I'm talking all over the country. We just came back last week from Tracy, Sioux Falls. Sioux Falls, not South Dakota. And 2 weeks ago I was in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And today I'm here. And before I tell you this, I had to witness 3 hangings. I was 3 camps where people trying to escape and they got cut. So on Sunday, we had to gather around watching being hung. I watched 3 of them 3 times. So now, if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer you. Actually, this picture, that's the only picture I have. This is a picture was taken at the Polish border because the top right, that was my father, and next to him was his brother. But the brother didn't want to go to the army in Poland, so he went to England. So he couldn't go back to the country, so they met at the border in 1923, and sitting down was my grandfather and grandmother. And this is a picture of my father taken out from one a group I have, a group picture. And next to it is, that's the only picture I have of my sister. She was my older sister. And this is the picture as I showed you. This is the one my friend to house me, and next to me is I'm in the middle, and next to me, that's my cousin who survived. His name was Mark Alexander. He was the same last name. So that's that picture. This is the one here, and this one here, it shows you see on the left-hand side on the bottom, it said I was in the camps from 1939 till May 2nd, 1945. That's a liberation from Dachau, from Landsberg, I'm sorry, that's from Auschwitz. As you see on the bottom, there's my tattoo there on the bottom. That's the liberation of Auschwitz. This is actually a driver's license I have from Germany, which is, there's no expiration date on it. You see it? It's still good. Yeah, there's no expiration on that. It's still good. I've used it in Germany. And there's the picture of Angela Merkel. I was talking to Dachau. And that's me there. That was one of the pictures to take. This is actually, you see there on the bottom, these are my document, liberation papers, which are placed at the Holocaust Museum, Los Angeles, at the museum. That's what these documents are. Well, there you see, there's my number, my tattoo. Well, that was the Los Angeles Times, the newspaper, this picture. This is the way we lived in the camps. See, those are shelves. There was one section for 3 people. And on the second row, on the end, I don't know if you can see it here, there's Elie Wiesel. Is on that picture.
We're going to begin with the Q&A session. If you have any questions, please text them to 831-428-1804.
Thank you so much for sharing your incredible story. Sorry, a little behind you. Okay, question for Joseph. Why did you report to the schoolhouse or camps or any place? Was there no other choice? Why did you report to the schoolhouse or camps or any place? Was there no other choice? I'm assuming this is from when things were just starting and they were telling all the Jews to report.
No, no, that's right, yes.
What would have happened if you didn't report?
If you, it's a report, no, I get where the,
Yeah, if you didn't come to where they told you to gather, what would happen?
no, no. If I didn't report where?
It says to the schoolhouse or camps or any place. So in the beginning of your story,
Oh,
you're,
the report to the schoolhouse. Well, if I didn't report, they would come and get me. That's what you meant. Yeah.
they had your name.
Yeah.
Okay, experiencing what you have, what advice do you have for young people?
What advice do I have to white people? Well, I'll tell you, they murdered 6 million Jews. They didn't murder them because they were criminals or did anything wrong. 6 million, 1.5 million children, just because they were Jews. And today, we have a lot of anti-Semitism going on and Holocaust deniers. I talked to high schools, hundreds of thousands of kids already, and tell them, if you hear any of those Holocaust deniers, I say they're crazy. I call them crazy because the evidence is still in existence today. You go back, we went back to the camps, all the camps, Auschwitz, Dachau, Majdanek, Treblinka, all the gas chambers are still there. You see buses every day coming, people from all over the world to witness in that. So that's why I call them the Holocaust denier. They're crazy. Said, don't listen to them.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and sharing your life story. How have you maintained your sanity?
How I would say the sanity is to talk to people like you. I like to talk to a lot of people and to let them know, because especially now I've heard the kids I talk at the high school students, is 70% of them never heard about the Holocaust. So there's a few survivors left. Is we are the one trying to talk to these people and let them know about the Holocaust. And I was told a lot of students to say, no, we wrote a lot of books about the Holocaust, but it's not the same to listen to somebody who survived. So that's why it's very, very important for us to talk to any group, anybody who wants to listen.
Thank you for sharing your story. What did you do to keep yourself from giving up? What lessons did you learn that served you later in life?
But not to give up. Well, when I talk to the high school students and I've let them tell them about what I witnessed in Birkenau, people run to the fence to get electrocuted, being beaten to death because they gave up. They always ask me, did you ever think of giving up? I said, no, I never did. I never lost hope, and I never stopped believing in God. And I said, I may have a bad day today, but I hope tomorrow will be a better day. But never give up.
Were you allowed to bring all these photos through each of the camps?
No, this is not, well, this is for photos from now, not from before. I don't have anything from before. The only time I have from before is what you saw the one picture of my father and my sister, which I got from some friends after the war. But I don't have anything else.
Okay. You are an amazing and You told an amazing and heartbreaking story of your experiences that is remarkably detailed. I'm wondering about how it felt as all this was happening to you. What was going through your mind and your heart as you made choices to survive? Thank you for sharing your story.
Well, actually now, you know, right now in a bad situation in Israel. You know, this reminds me of the way it started in Europe around 1938, when you had in Germany was the Kristallnacht, what they call it, and that's how it started. Started slowly like this, and then we had the Holocaust after that. So that's what happened now in Israel. That reminds me of what happened in Gaza. So it's very bad.
How old were you when you went to your first and last camp?
I was 16. I went to my first camp in 1939. And I was 21 when I was liberated.
A few questions from one person, so here we go. Thank you and strength and health to you, Mr. Alexander. What do you think about Bruno Bettelheim's work on surviving the camps? Bruno Bettelheim? Do you know who that is?
Not special.
Okay. Okay. Where do you live now? Do you have children? What do you think about your childhood and how it compares to childhood of American children now?
Yes, I live in Los Angeles, and I was married for 38 years, and my wife passed away. And I have a daughter and a son, and I have my girlfriend sitting right here.
And then what do you think about your childhood and how it compares with childhood of American children now?
Well, it's a completely different childhood here. I had a very good childhood. We had a very good life. I was a very good childhood. When I was 10 years old, I belonged to a Jewish organization, a Zionist organization, and we had a very good life. Until 1939. So the children today here, well, we didn't have the luxuries the children have here today. But we had a very, very good, happy life, very happy life. So children here, thank God that they can have the luxuries they get, that the parents can afford it to give them the luxuries. So that they were very fortunate to have that life.
Do you believe in God? How could God allow for the Holocaust to happen?
Well, God works in mysterious ways. We can't question God. I have, wait a minute, here, I'll show you something. I have a little booklet here where there's a school in Los Angeles. It's called the Otis Design Center. And I spoke to them about for 5 weeks, every Monday, for a couple hours. And then they put together a little book like this. And I'll let you read what it says here.
Do you believe in luck, Joe?
Turn around out the back, what it says.
No, I believe in God. And these are photos.
There's some photos of mine in the back of the book. That's what they, here, see. They took some pictures, some of the pictures I have.
Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you feel about not knowing what happened to the rest of your family?
Well, I feel very bad because I was working last year with the American Red Cross for about 3 months, giving details, names and birthdays and details to find out, but they came out zero, nothing. We couldn't find anything because I had 5 siblings and my parents and hundreds of aunts and uncles and cousins, but nobody survived.
Dear Joseph, thank you for all you are doing to bring awareness of the Holocaust to people throughout the world, especially young people. What enabled you to survive in terms of your inner wisdom, strength, faith through all of this? God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you. And now the only way we can stop it now is through education. To talk to the young people, the young high schools, middle schools, talk to them. And through education, that's the only way we can stop it. Stop the anti-Semitism, what's going on.
Are you one of the survivors featured in the USC Shoah Foundation's Dimensions in Testimony virtual program?
Yes.
And if so, yes?
Yes.
If so, what was that experience like for you making your video?
Well, it was on video, something I had to do was very good for me. But because this is something, the video will be there after I'm gone. So there's something in the video that it will always be something that somebody can always go and look at the video and give them my story, what I went through. So that's very important. That's what the Shoah Foundation is.
How did you manage to keep the pictures of your family?
I don't have any pictures actually of my family. The only pictures I have, like I say, this is the only 2 I have. There's one here. The one picture I have was from a group, that was a group picture. I had a cousin, he worked for a photography studio. And here is my father right in here. And he took out of this picture. And that's the only picture that you saw of my father. That's the only thing I have. And I have one for my sister where I got it from a friend of mine after the war. He survived. He was on Polish papers. He survived. So that's the only other picture I have.
So throughout the camps, you weren't able to take any belongings with you? Nothing?
No, I actually, when I went to my first camp, I had a lot of pictures. I had a lot of pictures. But when you go to the camp, you go to take a shower, you take off your clothes, you put your clothes down here, you go take a shower, you come out the other door, you never get your clothes back. You get somebody else's clothes. So all the pictures I have, that's why I left it right there.
Wow. I live in Israel and just came to visit 2 days ago. You lived through the Holocaust. How does it feel for you that lived this to see this happening again in Israel?
Very bad. That's what I say. That feel very bad because that reminds me what happened in 1938, actually. And Israel survive. They're strong enough, and they're gonna overcome that. They'll be the victors because they're strong, and they'll make it right.
Along the same lines, yes. Do you see similarities between how things began back then and how things are starting to get now?
Well, how things were back then, it was very bad, the way it happened, like I say. And things, it's a lot different now because we have Israel. If we had Israel, the Holocaust would never happen.
When the Americans came, did you trust them?
Yeah, did I trust them? Of course I did. They were the liberators.
We talked about this a little bit already, but what did you bring with you when you went to the camps and other spots?
When I went to the camp, couldn't take anything. I couldn't take anything. Like I told you, go to the camps. Whatever you had was gone. Because whatever you clothes, everything you had in your clothes, everything was gone. You went in, you got a shower, and you got other clothes.
Thank you for coming to Santa Cruz. Is there something about Polish people that made them kill Jews during and after the war?
Well, that's what I said. The Polish people, they could have saved hundreds of thousands of Jews. They did save some. They did save a lot of Jews also, but they could have saved more if they wouldn't collaborate with Germany. They could have saved a lot more Jews.
Did you experience any anti-Semitism in Poland before the war?
No, actually we didn't have anything. Until 1938, when they had the Kristallnacht, that's when we heard what happened in Germany. But in Poland, we didn't have any anti-Semitism.
Throughout all of the camps, did you have any positive or funny encounters?
Any positive words?
Throughout all of the camps, did you have any positive or funny encounters?
No, I didn't have any positive, no. No.
I'm a college student and I'm currently terrified by the anti-Semitism on my campus. What would you say to the anti-Semites and anti-Zionists currently attacking Jewish students and communities?
Well, what I would say to them, let them really see what's happened to the Jewish people. Don't believe what they have at the campuses today. They have a lot of anti-Semites, the professors who are anti-Semites, and they teaching the students. So that's what happened. It's very bad. You just have to try to tell them not to believe them what they said, and just keep their own mind. Don't listen to those professors.
Do you have a favorite quote you can share with us?
My favorite quote is, just do your best. Just keep hoping for the best, and everything is going to work out okay.
from you. What do you find in the world that makes you happy and hopeful?
Makes me happy and hopeful. Happy makes me happy that I can speak to people like you. That's what makes me happy. That I can spread the word, what happened, what I went through, and let the people know that that's what makes me happy.
When you ran from the left side with weak and old people to the right side with strong people, did anybody else do it?
No.
Were you raised religious?
Yes.
Considering what you witnessed about the suffering and cruelty of mankind, how do you believe peace can be achieved and be in the current conflict, considering the suffering on both sides?
Well, peace can be achieved if people can talk to each other. Instead of fighting, talking. Talking can settle a lot of things. If you can talk it out to people, if people are willing to listen. So that's the only way we can settle any conflicts, anything. Just get together and talk it out and settle things. That's the only way we can do it.
What are your feelings now about Germans?
So if you now about what?
What are your feelings now about the Germans?
About the Germans? Well, actually today it's a different Germany today. The Germany now today, they're more different, completely 100% around, turnaround. They are very close to Israel. They help Israel a lot. And they were now, we went to Germany several times, and you couldn't get any better treatments we were getting. And the people are very nice, very, very, very nice. They do anything for you.
Last question. Do you speak to non-Jewish groups? If yes, how is your experience with them?
So,
Non-Jewish groups.
non-Jew, I prefer lots of times to speak to non-Jewish groups. Because they're the ones have to be taught. Because they don't know as much the Jewish people know what happened. So when I speak, I would say to high school students, all the school, public schools, and regular school, public schools, and other, I speak religious schools, is to talk to them, to let them know what happened, is they are the ones had to be told, because like I said, 70% of them never heard about the Holocaust. So I prefer to actually to speak to non-Jewish kids, that's very important.
Thank you so much, Mr. Alexander, for being here. Really an honor.
Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to listening. Thank you.
Okay, one more question. What was it that you shared with people when they asked you why you went to visit the camps? What did you tell them then? Why you went to visit the camps?
When I went back to Germany, to Poland, to Germany, to the camps, when I went back to visit, and people asked me, why did you come back? So you know what I told them? I came back because I survived. Hitler didn't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. You're all welcome to come up to the front and meet personally if you'd like. We can mingle for a while. Thank you all very much for coming. We're toying with the idea. We're negotiating. Hopefully our next speaker, God willing, may be one of the soldiers who was in the group of Israeli soldiers who liberated the hostages in Entebbe. So we'll let you know more about that as that develops. In the meantime, let's schmooze a little, let's get to know each other a little, and please come up and meet the star himself. Thank you very much.
How are you cold?